Is her name on the second envelope? That was the moment that one stupid question from the junior HR girl holding the stack of congratulatory cards like she was dealing poker chips at a funeral. She looked at me, then at Martin, then back down at the second. Red envelope with gold lettering to our new director mine had been sitting on my desk since 9:02 a.m. I hadn't opened it. I thought it was just a formality, some HR fluff before the party, but when I heard her name, Sophie's name in the same sentence as director, I felt something cold slither down my spine, not fear. No precision like when a surgeon makes. The first cut 3 hours earlier, I was in Martin's office, going over my quarterly strategy deck. 42 slides, color-coded projections, modeled across 5 fiscal scenarios. He nodded the whole time, like a bobblehead with a sinus infection. Standing work, Alex. He said be ready for champagne tonight, so. I was ready. What I wasn't ready for was Sophie stepping onto the little makeshift stage in the lounge room. Martin placing his hand on her shoulder like a proud dad who hadn't once reviewed her weekly reports. And then announcing she was now officially director of strategy. I didn't move, didn't blink. My hand was still half raised from pouring a glass of watch. Sophie, do her. I'm so humbled, routine blinking too much, that fake smile twitching like. It was rented, the room clapped, some clapped too hard, people. Who'd me favors, people I trained then. Martin said it, she just contributes more. Then you like, he was handing her a goddamn coffee mug. Not my title. My work. My 4 years of weekends skipped. Holidays, PowerPoints at my mom's chemo sessions. Ida wasted them, looked Martin dead in the eyes. Smiled whiter than I ever had, because none of them. Not. Sophie, not. Martin, not the interns or the bootlickers or the half-drunk CFO. None of them knew what I had slipped into the Monday board agenda behind the ND airports, a single file titled April Shadows, a confidential audit of departmental conduct, and buried on Pajan a signature Martin approving Sophie's contract 3 weeks before the job was posted. Let's just say she'd been contributing long before she got her badge. The first time I suspected Sophie wasn't just ambitious was when I caught her in the executive break room, reheating soup in Martin's monogrammed mug. It wasn't just the mug, it was the way. She stirred it like she owned the place, like she'd already been here. And maybe she had. I remember asking her, casually, did you borrow that from his desk? She didn't even look up. Oh, he gave it to set it, like he'd handed her his soul later that week. Martin started quoting her in meetings, the woman who thought Ito was in herbal tea. Sophie raised an interesting point, he'd say, stealing my exact phrasing from our one-on-one 2 days earlier. But suddenly, her voice mattered more than my results. Like I was the warm-up act, and she was the headliner, just with less brain and more initiative. Let's call it. I started checking meeting invites, timestamps. Emails found a string of off-the-calendar sessions in Martin's private Outlook fold, old labeled creative. Sins. The first one booked 48 hours after her third day. The second same day as our canceled budget review. His excuse, family emergency. Sure, a very flexible family emergency. That required 3 hours and a locked door. But I wasn't just going to walk into HR with a bunch of spicy Outlook receipts like some jealous ex-no, wanted the whole picture. I wanted the rot from the roots, so I waited. I played the part, loyal, blindsided. Alex smiled at Martin jokes, let Sophie co-lead my campaign without so much as a sigh. Meanwhile, I started building a digital folder I named Chimainside Screenshots, Slack logs, server access, timestamps, even a blurred security, still from the 17th floor Theon hallway without official cameras. Let's just say Janine from building maintenance knows things. And Janine loves gift cards. Then came the kicker. I found an audio file. It wasn't labeled, just dumped in a backup cache on the shared drive. Probably forgotten, probably accidental. But when I played it through noise reduction, Martin's voice. Relax, you'll get the title, just keep doing what you're doing. Sophie's voice. Should I leave the blazer on this time? Isaved it triple backed it up and Ismailed, cause the board meeting on Monday I wasn't just showing up with a strategy deck, I was bringing. Judgment Day, Friday night, 11:47 p.m. I sat in my apartment, lights off monitor, glowing like the last candle at a funeral. Chimera was open on screen. My digital Trojan horse built not just to burn bridges, but to collapse the damn highway. Every file was labeled like a nail in a coffin. Chatlog SL Private Sophie, inviting Martin to brainstorm Atherloft on a Sunday. SL approval, SLC contract timestamp. Martin greenlighting her promotion before HR, even drafted, their acquisition, Jark audio elevator. 17 raw, wave Martin. Whispering lock the door. Right. Before the camera outside blinked off for Tenny's minutes, and that one's still my favorite. But the cherry on top, the twist that had turned heads and stomachs, the corporate card report Sophie had, a company, MX not unusual. What was unusual? 2,197 charge. At Lanu, a private spa that doesn't advertise, doesn't tweet, and doesn't even have a Yelp page, just a velvet trope door in Midtown, and a sign that says, by invitation, only date off transaction. Same night as our missed product deadline, her expense description, client. Wellness sync. Client. Wellness I ask. Now here's where it gets fun. C. I didn't just collect receipts, I planted some, and I don't feel bad about it, because when they decided to G-stripe my demotion behind my back, they opened the door, I just walked through. Holding matches earlier that week, I'd accidentally forwarded Sophie a confidential memo, and that didn't exist, until I wrote it myself. Subject Rorgfast Roman 2, CFO transition strategy buried halfway through was a fake line, but potential CFO successor, Sophie Ellison. Martin's recommendation, I watched her open it twice, then she printed it 3 hours later. Martin started treating me like a ghost with bad breath. Sophie, she was suddenly walking on air. I knew she'd shown him, which is exactly what I wanted, because on Monday the board opens the security envelope I anonymously submitted to legal. They won't just find infidelity, nepotism, and corporate fraud. They'll find a forged plan that Sophie herself leaked, a plan that suggests she was trying to overthrow the CFO. And Martin, he signed off on it with a timestamp, thanks to a little Outlook rule. Installed when I had access to his machine last quarter, to fix a sync issue. So yeah, let them drink champagne, them toast. I'll be waiting in the boardroom, with a smile, and a black suit not to get promoted to bury them both Monday 8:01 M sharp. I walked into the boardroom, like it was a courtroom, and I was both the prosecutor and the executioner, navy suit, fresh shave, zero smile. The kind of vibe that makes assistants stop mid-sentence and double-check calendar invites. The board was already seated, 7 of them, all in their 6, all with jaws carved from stone and patience. Thinner than Martin's ethics, Linda, chief counsel, was flipping through a thick manila envelope with a red tab, my envelope, the one marked confidential department. Irregularity, SL evidence attached. She didn't look up, just said, "Sit, Alex, this is going to be interesting." Martin strolled in 3 minutes late, adjusting his tie like he hadn't just walked into a live wire with gasoline in his pocket. Sophie was behind. Him all fake poise, and that I definitely rehearsed the smile in the mirror. Energy, she sat across from me, didn't blink, didn't need to. Her pupils were already dilated, fight ORF, flight mode before we begin. Martin said too casually, "I'd like to Linda cut him off. We'll start with the agenda item labeled April Shadows." Silence. I swear you could hear Sophie's throat tighten from across the room and to open the folder like she was unveiling a guillotine. She started slow contracts signed prematurely, meeting logs. That didn't exist. Access records to Ria's. She never should have had access to every time she flipped a page. I watched Martin smirk, twitch like a mask-melting one. Nerve at time. Then came the audio. Martin's voice, whispery low. "Relax, you'll get the title. Just keep doing what you're doing." Sophie's response, a breathy laugh. "And then I leave the blazer on." This time you could hear the board collectively recoil. One of them actually whispered, "Jesus Christ." Linda didn't stop. She dropped the spa receipt next. Then the forged CFO transition doc with Sophie's printed copy recovered from the 10th floor communal printer tray, thanks janitorial logs. She then handed the board a photo of Martin's signature, time-stamped before any internal approvals. Martin finally cracked. "This is absurd. None of this proves you signed off on a fake succession plan." Linda said ice cold. "You signed it and you buried it, and Sophie, you distributed it to unauthorized personnel." Sophie opened her mouth closed. It looked at me for the first time. No performance, just realization, just. Doom. I leaned back, folded my hands, said nothing. But inside I was dancing, because I hadn't just exposed a scandal, I'd weaponized their own arrogance. Martin tried to salvage it. God, he tried. The man stood there, red-faced and sweating through his overpriced linen like he'd just run a marathon through a meat locker. "It was a miscommunication," he said. voice wobbling like jello in an earthquake. That memo was exploratory internal brainstorming between trusted colleagues. You're twisting things, but the board wasn't biting, not with a paper trail longer than the Book of Revelations and a voice recording that sounded like softcore HR. Malpractice, let me get this straight, said Charles, the oldest board member who hadn't spoken in 2 years except to fire people. You greenol a promotion before we posted the job. You privately authorized access to budgetary reports for someone still on probation. And you, he jabbed a knobby finger at Sophie, submitted a document that implies succession planning without authorization, bypassing both legal and finance. Sophie finally snapped. I didn't write that memo. I just found it in my inbox. Alex sent it. Linda shut her down, and you printed it and distributed it. That makes you compliciter. Very, very stupid. She turned to Methan. First time. All meeting Alex. Do you have anything to add? Oh, I had volumes. I had receipts. Confessions enough dramatis. Irony to greenlight. A Netflix limited series, but I didn't give them that. I just leaned in and said only that I was told Sophie contributes more than I do. It figured it was time I contributed. Something back that landed like a hammer. To the teeth, the room froze. Sophie's mouth opened, no sound came out. Martin sank into his chair, like it was a sinkhole, saw a bead of sweat roll off his temple and vanish into the fabric of his $100 tie. Then just as Linda started, outlining the terms of their immediate suspension, the real twist slid into place because right then, HR Director Patel stepped in with a folded paper, his face, pale voice. Steady, one more thing. It pulled this from Sophie's work laptop. During the audit, he handed the paper to Linda. She read it, blinked, read it again, then she laughed. Actually laughed once, sharp and brutal, and handed the paper to the board, a printed screenshot of a draft resignation letter from me, typed, dated, time-stamped. 3 weeks ago I thought about quitting. I said before anyone asked I'd already accepted. They'd chosen her. I wrote the letter, left it in my drafts, decided I wouldn't send it. Not before I understood why Linda raised an eyebrow, and now I smiled slow and clean. Now I understand chairman closed the folder, meeting adjourned, but this war was just getting good by noon. Martin's nameplate was gone, literally gone. Someone from facilities peeled it off, like dead skin, and tossed it into a cardboard box with his world's best boss mug and 3 unread books on leadership, poetic. Really the man who once called Emmy a dependable workhorse, now reduced to an office ghost with a box full of lies. Sophie wasn't fired, not yet. Eagle said they had to evaluate her awareness versus intent, but she'd been escorted out of the building, not in cuffs, worse, quietly, shamefully. No eye contact, her desk already sealed with an IT-issued sticker that might as well have "are condemned." As for me, I didn't go back to my desk. I went to the 16th floor, glass walls, oak trim, the part of the building where people don't reheat fish in the microwave. That's where the chairman asked to meet was already seated when I walked in, no smile. Just that calculating look men get when they're deciding whether to crown you king or send you to the guillotine. You engineered all of this, he said. Not a question, a statement. I shrugged. I followed the paper trail, idled where it led. You baited them, I revealed them, silence, then you were willing to blow a crater in your own department. I looked him dead in the eye. Better a crater than a cancer. Another pause, the tiniest nod. We'd like to keep you on effective immediately. You'll report directly to me, title interim. VP off, strategy official promotion, pending board vote. He slid the folder across. The desk inside was the offer, salary triple, what I made a seat at the table, but I didn't sign, not yet, before I accept. I said, I want one thing clear. I don't do political theater. I don't do champagne backstabs. If I ever see another Sophie get fast-tracked because of someone's zipper instead of their work ethic, I won't file a report. He leaned forward. You'll quit. No, I said, I'll burn it down again. We shook hands. I walked out of that office, not just promoted, but reborn. No longer the dependable mule, no longer the guy they clapped for out of pity. From now on, they clap because I let them keep their jobs. And in the hallway, just as I passed the empty spot where Sophie's desk used to be, I noticed something strange, a white envelope, untouched, no name, inside a flash drive, labeled in shaky Sharpie. Martin Insurance. Looks like the war wasn't just getting good, it was going nuclear. The flash drive wasn't encrypted. That was the first red flag. Martin was many things: lazy, smug, a serial user of per my last email but careless. Not usually, which meant either he wanted this found or he was already running out of moves. I plugged it into a burner laptop in the privacy booth on 14, away from camera. So away from whispers, the screen blinked, and a single folder appeared, / for emergency use. Only / inside were 6 files. The first was a video, grainy night vision green office camera footage, clearly taken from a private feed knotted into our standard system angle, was aimed straight at a glass wall. Martin's office, the timestamp 2 weeks before, Sophie's promotion in the video Martin shirt. Half off, Sophie hair down, blazer on the chair, her knees on the desk. It wasn't just inappropriate, it wasn't just scandalous, it was calculated. They looked directly at the camera, smiled like they were filming a goddamn alibi. Then it hit me. This wasn't blackmail. It was insurance against each other. They never trusted one another, knew the arrangement would end in fire. File 2 was a PDF annulled email thread between Martin and someone named J.H. Lux, private server offshore address. Subject line, consulting fees, squat. Exit strategy. There was mention of a payment, a large one, to an account in the Cayman file. 3, an unfiled HR complaint from 2 years ago. Another name I didn't recognize. Lucinda H. accusing Martin of coercion was marked retracted in red, date of retraction. 4 days after she suddenly relocated to Berlin. File 4. A screenshot of Sophie's first application to the company, attached cover letter, included a line that made my blood freeze. Martin suggested I keep this quiet for now, but I'm excited to make it official. Soon date 4 months before we even posted the job listing file. 5, a spreadsheet of departmental promotions over the past 3 years. Free name, every date, everyone marked with a green or red cell. Green female under 30 promoted within 6 months. Red male over 30 delayed or denied promotion, a pattern. A program file. 6, just a note typed in plain font, no sender. No metadata if you're reading. This it means I lost, but they won't bury me alone. HR won't act without pressure. Legal won't act without leverage. Use this. Or destroy it, but either way, pretend you didn't know. Me, I closed the laptop, my mouth tasted like metal. I was already in the war, but this was something else. This was a map to bodies no one knew were buried, and the worst part, someone else had already. Started digging Tuesday 6/14 a. Me, on my office door was ajar. That was the first sign. Second, my chair was warm, someone had been here. The flash drive was gone. I locked it in a drawer the night before, and 2-factor locks and a false bottom. Only 4 people had badge access to my floor before 7 a.m. I checked the logs. Martin's ID deactivated. Sophie revoked. Janitorial crew scanned out at 4:03. The 4th ID J. Hernandez legal. I recognized the initials from the offshore email, J.H. Lux. So Martin hadn't just been bribing shadows, he had one of them working inside. The company I moved fast called it the badge logs. Frozen, pulled surveillance footage, miraculously corrupted. Of course I knew I had maybe hours before this whole thing turned on me. Whoever J.H. really was, they'd now seen everything Mart and stashed everything. I knew, but I wasn't done, not yet. I compiled my own dossier, not for HR, not for legal, for the press, and for the 3 remaining board members. I trusted men and women who still ran companies with their names on the door. That's some hollow title I sent it out at 7:03 a.m. Sharp. 3 hours later, chaos broke loose. The company's PR rep resigned mid. All 2 department heads walked out, and at 107 a.m. Sophie Ellis was officially terminated pending further investigation. Her access revoked in real time during an impromptu Zoom call. She couldn't even finish word as she tried to scream. Defamation didn't get past the first syllable, and Martin found him outside HQ in a Blacktown car talking to a man in a gray suit who didn't blink once during the entire exchange when they saw. They stopped talking. He smiled, but it wasn't the smile of a man who won, it was the smile of a man trying to look calm. Before the drop by Friday, it was done. Martin had retired for personal reasons. Sophie had vanished from linked entirely. Hernandez, no longer with legal hear mail, bounced interim memos, cited unauthorized data breaches, and whispers of a federal audit started bleeding through Slack channels like static through a broken radio. And me. I didn't take the VP title. I turned it down. I don't want a chair at their table. I want the blueprints, so now I work from the 27th floor. No title, no office door, just an unlisted extension and the full ear of the board. Every strategy runs through me. Now every time someone calls me, dependable or safe, I just smile because they'll never know how close they came to collapse, and I'll never let them forget I clapped, I toasted. But when the smoke cleared, I owned the match.